What's up, everybody? Couch Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down 5 strats that you can easily counter. And these are strategies or characters that dominate your games, whether that's snipers, Bastion, Wrecking Ball, Flank Hog, the list goes on and on. So we're going to be breaking all that down so you can stop losing to absolute BS in every one of your games. But go to the GameLeap website in the links down below for in-depth advanced guides, VOD reviews over every single hero, plus tips, tricks, and feat picks. We got it all on the GameLeap website, so go check it out in the links down below. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, kicking it off with the first category that a lot of players struggle with because it can be so damn frustrating, and that's snipers. How many times have you walked into open space only to get your head blown clean off when you feel like you have very little counterplay? Maybe it's a Widow that just constantly keeps dinking 2 people in a fight that you should have hypothetically won. Or it's a Hanzo that seems to just log spam only for multiple people to get picked off in the process. Whatever the case may be, snipers can feel absolutely terrible to play against, but let's give you some targeted tips that is really going to help you deal with snipers and get more value up against snipers no matter what character you are. Now, the first thing that you need to understand is that a sniper's uncomfy zone is typically way up close. They want to play in their effective range, and for Widow, their effective range is across the entire map. And for Hanzo, he's effective from a lot of different ranges, from that mid to far range in particular. That being said, Widowmaker is one of those characters that is very ineffective from up close. So if you can position in a way that at the very least puts her in that mid range to where she's uncomfy, she's not playing completely safe, that is like one of the best things you could possibly do against Widow in particular. Now, Hanzo's a little bit different because he's more effective from close range than Widowmaker, but one thing that you have to do against Hanzo is take that high ground. You cannot give Hanzo this high ground for free. He'll do all kinds of crazy plays like shoot you down from above, dive on top of you, wall climb back up. He gets a lot of flexibility if you don't take that high ground from him, so definitely keep that in mind when up against the Hanzo. Now, overall though, the big thing that's very important up against snipers is being disciplined with natural cover. You can't just openly peek space, and you should not peek lines of sight of the enemy, especially far lines of sight if you do not have to. You can't always rely on your Reinhardt shield, or any shield for that matter in this meta, and a lot of times remember that getting from point A to point B, you need to do it as quickly as possible without peeking very far into open space because you will die. The last thing that I'm going to tell you about snipers is if you've ever seen any big montages, whether it be Hanzo or Widowmaker, the enemy is always jumping. Remember that when you're jumping, you're in a fixed movement and it's very easy for snipers to kill you, so I know instinctively you want to jump, but it's far better to crouch spam and AD left and right than it is to jump, period. But you can jump if you're going to be hidden by natural cover before the jump is over. For instance, you could jump at that last instant right before you get from where you are in open space to natural cover, because if an enemy's lining up a headshot, they will have it at your head level waiting for you to cross that little threshold. So definitely keep that in mind. But if you incorporate all this, you're going to pressure out snipers more and you're going to survive to them a lot more as well. Now, let's talk about the second thing that you need to learn how to counter. Very important. A lot of people absolutely hate this character, and it's Bastion strats. This can be extremely dominant at times where it feels like no matter what you do, you can't do anything about the Bastion. But the first thing that you need to understand is it's back to the same thing we talked about on snipers: natural cover and the high ground. Routing to an angle that the Bastion cannot see, no shields, no bodies, no nothing he can shoot at. And if you get that vantage point on that Bastion, eventually when he has to route underneath you on that cart, you're going to have an opportunity to engage on top of him with abilities. Now, not all abilities are created equal in this regard. There are some abilities that are very good up against Bastion and some that don't really do that much. So it's really important that if you do have an ability that's really good against Bastion, you try your best to set up a play on him. Think about a character like Ana that has 2 good abilities against Bastion, both her anti-nade and her sleep dart. ROADHOG has his hook. Echo can potentially sticky bombs him and use her beam on him. There's a lot of different characters that have some sort of counterplay on Bastion, and on top of that, even more characters that can just jump on top of him. A character like Reaper or Genji, for instance, can really help to burst him down. But it's really important that you first get out of his effective damaging zone, and then 2, immediately look for a play. And sometimes that means waiting for him to route to the appropriate position to where you're like right above him, for instance, and then you execute on him with as many abilities as you possibly can. Even better if you're in a duo and you and a teammate can coordinate this together, because typically you hit an ability on him and you get 2 people focusing him. That's enough to get that Bastion killed right away. And then of course, always watch for things like Immortality Field and Mercy Resurrect. to get that Bastion, either save him or get him back in the battle. Now we're going to the next type of strategy that can be very frustrating depending on the type of character you are, and that is divers. I'm talking about characters like Doomfist, Genji, Tracer, especially if you're a support, a Zenyatta, sometimes even DPS if they're double diving you. Very, very frustrating dealing with divers, especially if you don't do these few things that can just shut them down out of nowhere. Now, the first thing that you need to be doing every single time up against divers is acknowledging that they are somewhere on the battlefield and trying to figure out where they are. There should be a really big red alert if you know the enemy has a Doomfist and you haven't seen him for like 15 to 30 seconds. You know, holy crap, he's about to do some dumbass rollout and fly from the rooftops and insta-kill me as Zen. That's what you need to be thinking about. It's like a little trickle, like a spider sense in the back of your mind where you're like, holy shit, where's this Doomfist? Where the hell is this Doomfist? I know he's around here somewhere. And if you do not think about that, you're just gonna get insta-killed by the Doomfist. Now, another thing that you can do is note the routing of enemy characters. If that Tracer's wrapping all the way to the right, or that Genji's going to the left, or the Doomfist is doing a rollout from the top, knowing where the enemy is coming from can allow you to position across the battlefield to the other side, making it so that person has to travel through more empty space to get to you. And you could even make a proactive play, get peel sooner because you could call for it. And even if you're, you know, brain dead McCree doesn't come help you for 30 seconds because you called it so soon and you told him ahead of time, he's gonna back up way before at the very least. Basically, as long as you're hyper aware of these characters, constantly tracking their positions and repositioning yourself accordingly, that's gonna give you the best shot possible. And a lot of times when your characters like Ana, characters like Zen, being able to discord that target early, put a little bit of damage into that target a little bit early before they get on top of you, or making sure you save your abilities such as Sleep Dart for when a diver actually engages you. These are all very important things that could be the difference between winning that matchup, getting a kill on the enemy, and winning the entire team fight, or just insta-dying and becoming the catalyst for a lost team fight. Very, very important stuff, but it requires expert situational awareness and constantly thinking about where these characters are. Now moving on to the next type of character, the type of character that every single person hates playing against, and it's the flank hog. It can be really frustrating when you're just minding your own business in the back of your entire enemy team and a flank hog comes out of nowhere and just rolls and smokes you. And that being said, just like with the diver example, you have to be aware of that Roadhog's position. But unlike the diver's example, this Roadhog is a huge, fat, and slow target. You should never be caught off by surprise unless you're not paying attention. Especially if that hog is consistently going for these type of plays, it is extremely easy to catch him out, bait him, or just avoid him altogether. Now, there are two things that you can do. You could just leave him and kind of keep avoiding him, or you could try to make some sort of coordinated engage with your teammates, and that's best to do, of course, in duo queue, where you have actually a reliable other teammate rather than random. So sometimes it's better to just avoid him altogether, or wait until he tries to engage on an ally only for you to help that ally and potentially turn the tables on the hog. Now, on top of that, you need to be constantly in a position where you can jiggle behind natural cover. If you're near a natural cover and a hog peeks to try to hook you, you can quickly push yourself behind it, and even if the hook touches you, it will break off. And that's one of the best ways to kind of prevent that hog from getting a lot of value, because if you basically break off like 2 or 3 of his hooks, or he doesn't get value out of 2 or 3 of his hooks, he's gonna just be throwing the game, and that's enough. You do not have to just always counter him. Sometimes him just doing nothing is enough for your team to win the team fight. Now, the last thing that you gotta remember on Roadhog is there's certain characters that are really good at stopping him, and you need to identify if you're one of those characters and when is the appropriate time. For instance, a character like Ana hard counters him with sleep and nade. McCree or any other character that has stuns are very good, and there's a number of characters that can definitely push him like crazy, like Reaper if he doesn't have his hook, or if you could successfully bait or jiggle out his hook. But either way, understanding how you match up against the Roadhog, where he's positioned, and when you can either engage or when you should disengage from him is the best way to deal with the hog, and basically make that hog just a giant old battery or someone that is completely useless to the enemy team. Now we go to the last type of character that you need to learn how to counter, because he is the most picked character in the entire game right now. Very frustrating to deal with and can be a cause for a lot of losses if people don't do these select few things, and it's Wrecking Ball. Now, the big problem with Wrecking Ball is no one is on the same page as far as focus fire is concerned. concerned in ranked, especially when you're at the lower ranks. But even in the higher ranks, no one knows how to focus a target. You don't ever get to that point unless you're in scrims, and typically even not until you're at high level scrims. Now, the reason that this is a big problem is a lot of people will call the wrecking ball when he's not really killable. Not enough people will focus him down and he'll get out and everyone will waste their abilities and their time. Or they will call a wrecking ball when he is killable, but not enough people want to focus that target down or do in time, and the wrecking ball gets away at very weak HP. Regardless of what situation you're coming across, it's very frustrating to say the least. Now, here's the thing. You have to take note of when a wrecking ball is killable or not, and you have to assume that the majority of the team will not focus the target. Maybe one other person if you're lucky, but more than likely it's gonna be you unless you can CC the target and the target's just sitting there. Then at least one other person should shoot it. But if you do not have any CC, do not expect a teammate to turn around, find the wrecking ball, and track them, and especially not multiple teammates, or else you're gonna be calling that wrecking ball for nothing. Now, a lot of times, especially if you know your team is just not gonna be able to focus down that wrecking ball, you still need to put enough damage into that wrecking ball to make him run away. You don't want him to just chill out in your backline, just beaming down supports, putting pressure into them. So if you can zone him away, that sometimes is good enough, but don't over zone him away or overextend to the point where you're wasting all your time on him, and that's exactly what he wants you to do. Now, of course, for every character that has CC, it is your responsibility to make sure that you stun and prevent that wrecking ball from just getting away with treason by running through the map over and over again. If you're a character like Ana, if you're a character like McCree, character like ROADHOG, these are all characters that really need to consistently use their CC on a wrecking ball, and that's going to have the highest conversion rate into actually killing him, especially when wrecking balls are not disciplined, and that's just very important for you to hit. If you're consistently missing hooks on wrecking ball, missing flashes, missing sleeps, that's pretty bad to say the least, and it's one of the most important jobs that you do have in the current meta. Now, on the flip side, when you have a stunner and that person stuns a target, you need to all focus them down together. Now, that being said, with specifically Ana, do not wake the wrecking ball up if the Ana sleeps him. The Ana should be the one that counts down, and the team should focus, unless you have another CC. Then, of course, you can wake him up, CC him again. That's perfectly fine because there's almost 100% chance you're going to kill the target. But if you do not wake up the wrecking ball. Just don't do it, and you're just going to have a very high conversion rate of killing that wrecking ball if you sleep him, because he should die almost every single time you sleep him. But I know from many Anas I've VOD review and playing Ana myself, more than likely that wrecking ball is just gonna get woken up right away. So just keep that in mind. Everyone wants to kill the rat. I promise you, you just gotta properly time these things to get him dead instantly. He doesn't have time to adaptive shield or run away. Now, do yourself a favor and go to the GameLeap website for in-depth advanced VODs, tips and tricks, and guides over every single character, plus counter guides, so that if you want to counter any of the characters that we listed here or any of the characters in the game, we have an in-depth guide about it in the description down below. But thank you so much for coming by. I hope you enjoyed the video. That's all I got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time,